Okay, looks like I am live. Welcome to Fairfax Cryobank's first live Instagram. I am excited to be here with all of you. Tonight we are going to be talking about Fairfax Cryobank donor sperm. Looks like I've got people joining. This is exciting. This is my first one, so please share feedback, give us suggestions for additional live content. We're very interested. We want to engage with you guys and offer things that you all need. I am going to start with an introduction and then give you some information, and then we'll get right into this. Please feel free to submit questions in the comments. My name is Michelle Oddie. I am the lab director and the director of operations for Fairfax Cryobank. I have been with Fairfax. It will actually be 15 years this June 26th. It will be my 15th anniversary, which is crazy to me, but amazing. Clearly, I love what I'm doing and I love the people I work with, and it is insanely amazing and such a gift to be able to basically contribute to people's dreams being fulfilled by what I'm doing each day. It's really wonderful and very rewarding. So thank you all for letting me do my job. I am in Philadelphia. I live in Philadelphia. My wife and I have a condo here in Fairmount in Center City, and I am a Philly girl, have been all my life, never leaving. And it's a beautiful day, and I hope you all are having a wonderful weekend. And again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's so nice to see everybody joining. I'm just babbling to give people time to join the live, and then we will get started. As I mentioned, I'm the lab director of Fairfax Cryobank, and I've been with the company for quite a while. Fairfax has actually been around since 1986. The cryobank was founded out of the Genetics and IVF clinic based in Fairfax, Virginia, hence our name. And over time, we have grown and evolved and basically work to provide the best tested, highest quality donor sperm and sperm donor pool for you all to choose from in your family building journey. So I am going to start by giving you a brief overview of the application and screening process for the donors. I think that'll answer some of your questions. And then I'm going to jump into some of the pre-submitted questions. But as I said in the very beginning, please do go ahead, submit questions in the comments, and I will scroll back through once I get through our pre-submitted questions to try to get to everything. Now, realistically, I don't know that I'm going to answer everybody's questions, but I'm going to do my best. And if you don't get an answer to your question tonight, you can feel free to email info@fairfaxcryobank.com and somebody can answer your question. We have an amazing client services staff that's always happy to help. So let's get started with the basics. If someone is interested in being a sperm donor, they go to our website and they complete an initial and a medical application. We review that information. If we think they're a suitable candidate, we're going to bring them in for some specimens, semen specimens to screen. So basically, the guys are going to come in, they're going to produce specimens, answer questionnaires about their lifestyle, about their health and well-being, and we're going to do a semen evaluation or analysis, excuse me, that looks at the health of the sample. We actually do several screening specimens just to see that they can maintain the abstinence hours, are living a healthy lifestyle, and that we can process the sample in a way that allows us to have samples that will survive that freeze-thaw process and give you a good quality sample for your inseminations. So at that point, we don't keep anything because we haven't done any infectious disease testing. So we get rid of all those screen samples. We do a criminal background check. We do a psychological evaluation looking for different psychopathologies. It's called the PAI, or Personality Assessment Inventory. We verify transcripts and diplomas if they've graduated, and collect a whole bunch of other information. And our medical director, who is a board-certified clinical pediatric geneticist, along with myself and a couple of other individuals in the management group, Review each packet of information, and if the guy looks like a good candidate, the next step is all of the testing. They're going to have a physical, they're going to have infectious disease testing, genetic disease screening, and if everything comes back acceptable, that's when we then start collecting samples from the donors. Each sample has a post-thaw evaluation done from a tiny, tiny amount that we freeze separately. And basically we do that because if a sample is frozen for 24 hours or 24 weeks or 24 months, it should look the same at post-thaw as long as the integrity is not compromised. So we're going to do that with every sample. Our guys are basically having questionnaires at every single donation visit. They are having periodic blood draws and physicals to make sure that they're staying healthy and maintaining the lifestyle that they need to in order to keep their sperm healthy, because basically every decision we make affects our fertility, and that's especially true for guys when they are making choices about diet, sleep, stress, exercise, all of that. And basically at that point, through the process, we're collecting samples, we're doing evaluations, we are processing them and freezing them, and then every vial that's produced has to stay in quarantine. Sperm banking, gamete banking is regulated by the FDA, and the FDA says that every specimen has to remain in quarantine for a minimum of 6 months. So basically every dose that's produced has to remain in quarantine. So the doses that you're buying today were produced a while ago, no earlier than 6 or 7 months ago. So we're doing more blood draws to clear those units from inventory to get them available for you all. Fairfax has, I think as of earlier today, it was over 330 donors on the catalog with availability ready for you in your journey toward being a parent. Okay, so that's my little introductory spiel. I'm going to jump into the pre-submitted questions, and then I will go back and see the questions in the comments. Okay, the first question we got is, will you be getting new donors or any old donors with new releases soon? And the answer is yes and yes. We are constantly recruiting new applicants and new donors for the program. And as I mentioned, we're constantly doing blood draws to clear more inventory from quarantine to make it available to you. And you'll see every month, a good way to know when stuff is clearing is to become part of the newsletter email that we do. And you'll get announcements of new donors as they come onto the catalog. And we are excited that sometime in the spring, we're going to have a new notification system for when, if you're on a wait list, if a donor has new released vials available. Okay. This next question is one we get a lot. It's so hard to find CMV negative donors. I've read that it's okay for a woman to use a CMV positive donor. CMV is cytomegalovirus. It's a virus that many of us are exposed to, and the majority of us never know it. You don't ever have symptoms. When it becomes important is during pregnancy. There are some negative effects if you become infected during pregnancy. Now, CMV can be a little complex to understand, so I do recommend that you speak with your medical professional about this. I'm going to give you a brief explanation, and on our website we have a great infographic that outlines what it means, when you can choose, what you can choose. But basically, once you've been exposed to the CMV virus, and really any virus, you develop antibodies. Your immune system has a response. And so there are two different kinds of antibodies that you can look at to understand what's happening in the body. You can look at an IgG or an IgM, okay? If you've ever been exposed to CMV, if the donor, for example, has ever been exposed to CMV, they're going to be CMV total antibody positive, and that means that they have had an exposure. Their body is primed to fight that virus again, and they're going to have IgG positive results. You don't want IgM positive, because what that means is that you're having an active viral infection. So basically, as we're doing these tests for the donors, we're doing total antibody, IgG, and IgM. If we have a donor that comes back as IgM positive, he's deferred until the infection, until that viral infection is quelled and he's no longer shedding active virus. And all of the affected samples are discarded. So even if a donor is marked as CMV positive on the catalog, that does not mean that there is CMV virus in his sample. We also have the advantage of having a molecular infectious disease lab as part of genetics and IVF in Fairfax Cryobank. So we're able to do CMV NAT testing, which is DNA testing on the actual semen. This is a great thing for all of you, because basically it's giving us another test, another result that's showing us that the semen is safe, even from a CMV positive donor. Some medical professionals are going to tell you, if you're CMV negative, just get a CMV negative donor. And that's fine. If that's what your medical professional advises, go with their advice. Others are going to tell you, it's fine. We know the sperm is fine. We know the sperm is not infected with the virus. So follow your medical professional's advice. Okay. If I'm giving too much information, give me a sign or something in the comments, because I do like to talk. Okay. Next question. Donor sperm is low due to the pandemic. Are you seeing this changing? Actually, this is really interesting. There's a phenomenon happening right now through this pandemic where it does appear that the numbers are a little bit lower. We are seeing more engagement and activity, and our donors are selling. We do have inventory and donors available. What I think is important is that there were some logistical challenges related to COVID. We really took the time to make sure that our staff was safe, that the donors coming in were safe, that our clients were safe, and we were able to, again, through this relationship with the MIDL lab, we were able to implement RT-PCR diagnostic COVID testing for our staff and our donors. We're also following FDA guidelines and recommendations for screening, as well as the American Society of Reproductive Medicine's guidelines and recommendations. We basically had a little dip in production, but generally we are back up and running and everything is looking good. Our numbers look good. We're putting up as many new donors as we've always put up historically. We're actually building more inventory than we ever have. But you have to remember there is that lag of about 6 to 7 months in what we're doing today to what you're going to have available. So what I can tell you is that our donor recruiting is looking good, our donor screening is looking good, and our donor inventory production is looking good. So I'm hoping that as the new donors are released and as our current donors release more inventory, you have what you need. And I also mentioned that in the spring, we're going to be launching some new availability notifications. So that will also help in keeping you all informed as to what's going on. Okay. How long does it take from when a donor is posted to when vials are sold? Also, why the delay? I think I covered that mostly. That delay has to do with the required quarantine period. And there's also a lot for us to do in that first 6 months. We have to collect all of that personal information, verify all of that family information from the donors in interviews, in appointments, through the application process so that we can create the medical profile and the personal profile. And there's a ton of information. There's photos and essays and audio interviews. So it takes time to build all of that up to have the profile available for you all. Let's see. I actually just saw a great question pop up, and I actually want to get to this. Are your donor pool all from the same area, or are they from throughout the country? That's a fantastic question. I mentioned that I'm in Philadelphia. We have our corporate headquarters in one of our labs in Fairfax, Virginia. We also have labs in Texas, in California, and in Minnesota. So we're recruiting donors from all over the country. They are all then processed in those labs and sent to Fairfax, Virginia, and distributed from there. But we're able to recruit from diverse populations from 6 different labs throughout the country. So it's beneficial because then you all get to have a more diverse donor pool to choose from. So Sasha 3188, thank you so much for that question. I just saw that pop up and I wanted to answer it. Okay. Do you have to have approval for a home delivery, and if so, by whom? This is a fantastic question. especially during the pandemic, it has become more popular and more frequent in the requests that we're getting to basically deliver to a person's home for a home insemination. And that's an incredible, fantastic idea. We've actually done several webinars about home insemination, and you can access them on our website through the blog. There are links in there for the home and sem websites. They're fantastic. Our nurse practitioner, Kate Wisda from our Pasadena lab, we have a clinic out in California as well. She does inseminations, but she presents home insemination information as well. I give you the little donor spiel. She tells you all the details about the needleless syringe and the catheter for in IUIs for in office, and then tells you at home the needleless syringe and how to do the insemination yourself. Home insemination is a great option, and for years, medical professionals would tell heterosexual couples, try for 6 months, and then we'll talk about your options. Well, queer couples didn't really have that option. Single women were never really given that option, and there's a lack of equity in that. And so we're really happy that more medical professionals are advocating and advising for their patients to try at home, try an insemination at home. I'm excited about that. We actually offer home delivery in some states, and we can include the needleless syringe as well as home insemination instructions. But I also recommend watching that webinar because Kate gives some really great advice, especially about what to do and how to handle your body right after the insemination. You do have to have approval for a home delivery, and it does vary by state, the state to which we would be shipping. And that has to do with the fact that in the US, we are 50 states, and each of our 50 states has different parentage laws and requirements. And some states require that even for a home insemination, you have to be under the guidance of a medical health professional in order to establish that the donor is not a parent. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything to protect your family and your future child. So the best way to know if you can proceed with a home insemination and what kind of approvals you need is to talk to our incredible CS team. They can advise you on that and direct you to the right information. If you do need approval, it really is, it's a one-page document that is not complicated at all, and your medical health professional can sign off on it. It can also be a midwife. It doesn't have to be a physician. So that's a good question. So like I said, I'm going to keep kicking it back to those webinars because I do think that they're a great resource. Let's see. All right, if the donor only has a small amount of vials available, can you request more? So one thing I wanted to talk about related to this question is, if the donor's inventory is what it is, we build a certain amount of inventory to distribute for a certain period of time until we have a certain family number reported to us, and then we stop distribution. And if there's inventory available and you've reported a birth, you can purchase that donor as a sibling. They might be listed as sibling only, but you can purchase them because you've reported a birth to us. If a donor ends up with no inventory left, like he's sold out, he's done, but you have a birth reported, you can do what we call a reactivation, where basically you would pay a fee. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I don't know all the fees. That's not really where I spend my time. Our client services staff is incredible, and they'll be able to answer all those fee questions for you. And we do a fee sheet on the website as well. But if you pay a fee, basically we can reach out to the retired donor and ask them if they would be willing to reactivate for 1 or 2 additional donations to collect samples and process them specifically for you. So you would basically be pre-purchasing those vials. They do have to stay in quarantine for 6 months, and we do have that additional blood draw. So even if the donor is sold out, as long as you already have a birth by that donor, we can reactivate him for you. Okay. Ooh, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but it is just me. So this is what you get. All right. Let's see. Does it matter if I choose a donor that has never had kids? Another very good question. So on our catalog, what you'll see on the donor profiles is proven pregnancy. And if that answer is yes, that either means that the donor themselves has a child, or we've already had a pregnancy or birth reported to us. It's not a problem if the donor doesn't already have a proven pregnancy. As I said, you have to remember, they go up on the catalog, And when they're on the catalog, that availability is there for you all, but it takes several months, right? So they're producing today, those vials are going to be on sale in 6 or 7 months when they clear from quarantine. And at that point, somebody buys it, it can take, another 10 months for us to get a report. So it's not immediate cause and effect there, but, proven pregnancy is great. I will tell you, in all my time, we've never had a donor that wasn't able to achieve pregnancy. We do all of the evaluation up front so that, to ensure the health of the sample. All right, Uncurable Romantic just asked an amazing question, and thank you for this. She says, is your donor allowed to be a donor for another company? And the short answer is no, they're not. We ask multiple times in our application and in person if they've ever applied to another sperm bank program or produced in another sperm bank program. And what I will tell you, and I'm going to give a little shout out to our competitors here, is that several of us years ago met and formed a group basically where it's called the AGDP, which is the Association of Gamete Donor Providers, where we created together a database, and we uploaded our historical information about our donors. And I basically do this monthly now for all of our new donors being added, where we upload them into this shared database. And when my staff has a new donor applicant, they take some very basic information, some numbers of their social security number, initials, some other basic information, and they do a search on this database. It's a private database that only the association members have access to. And basically it's a double check to make sure that the donor applicants are being honest with us and that they haven't. And we have been able to prevent serial donation since we were able to implement this. I cannot speak to all of the donors in, all of the different sperm bank histories, but I can tell you that since we implemented this, we've all been working together to avoid serial donation. I just, as an aside, we all who work at Fairfax are very invested in this. We all believe in this mission, and we want to do what's right for all of you and also for your children. And so we knew that this was important, and that's why we built this system. And like I said, monthly I'm uploading it and updating that information, and then anytime my staff has a new applicant, they're checking it. So thank you for that question. That was fantastic. All right. Another really good, important question. What are donor birth limits? Now, sperm banking has been around a really long time, and actually the first documented sperm donor insemination happened here in the great city of Philadelphia back in the 1800s in a very, very different type of situation. But over time, even as Fairfax has been around, the field has evolved. When sperm banks really started to grow and be set up, they were being set up to meet the needs of heterosexual couples who were dealing with male infertility. And that's a really important part of what we do. It still is an important part of what we do, but it isn't the majority of what we're doing. The majority of our clients are single women, or are cisgendered lesbian couples who are looking for, well, I shouldn't say lesbian, but cisgendered women couples who are looking to build their family. And so over time, we have listened to our recipients. We listened to your feedback. We have listened to the feedback from the donor conceived community, those individuals who were conceived with donor sperm and are now reaching adulthood and speaking out and talking about their experiences. And so we implemented years and years ago, back in 2008, an internal family limit of stopping distribution at 25 families. So once we have 25 families reported to us in the United States, we stop distributing to new recipients. At that point, I mentioned you could purchase sibling only if you have a reported birth. We then have we do distribution all over the world. So I see some of you are here from the UK, some from Australia, some from South America. We follow the regulations in each of the locations where we distribute. So for example, in Australia, like the United States, a bunch of independent states with a lot of different regulations. New South Wales, for example, has a limit of 5 families in one state, and Victoria has a limit of 10 families in one state. So we follow those regulations. But in the United States, we don't have an overall regulatory limit. The ASRM, I mentioned earlier, American Society of Reproductive Medicine, they recommend no more than 25 births per population of 800,000. Now that's sort of hard to wrap your head around and could be a lot of births in the whole country, right? So we made the decision to go with 25. And so far it's, since we implemented this, it's going well. We've limited distribution for many of our donors earlier than that because we have only collected enough inventory for fewer families than that. But this actually ties into a really important point that I want to stress to all of you. We need you to report your births to us. If you report a pregnancy, fantastic, but then you have to come back and report that birth too. We want to know that you're doing well. We want to know that the birth occurred. And especially if you are using an ID donor and would like your child to have the option of connecting with them, you need to register the birth with us as well. So we have that information and can verify everything in the future for that connection. All right. I'm going to scroll back and see if I can maybe answer some of the questions that have come in. There's so many of you here. It's so great. Thank you so much for joining. All right. Do we ship to the UK from, I'm terrible at reading these, the little names. Amy's Ram 84. They asked if we ship to the UK, and we do indeed ship to the UK. We actually have a UK distributor in Manchester. If you need information about that, you can email global@fairfaxcryobank.com, and you'll probably get an email back from Christy Burke, who is fantastic and sweet. So that's how you find out more information about that. Okay, let's see. How do you verify family history? This is a really good question. So I mentioned to you that the donors do their application online, and it's a 3 to 4 generation medical history. And I say 4 because if the donor has a child, they're also reporting on that generation. So it's the donor themselves, their parents, and then their grandparents. We have them complete that online application, filling out medical questions, if anybody has any conditions, what treatments they're going through, all of that. And then we sit down with them and we do medical donor interviews where our staff basically has them reiterate all of that information again. It's not in front of them. We're asking them the questions and we're verifying what was entered. They also have a physical exam with with contracted physicians that work with the cryobank, and the physicians are verifying the donor's history, and they do like a full really comprehensive physical exam on these guys. And they get additional family history information. And we're also doing all of the infectious and genetic disease testing to get that information. Okay, so thank you for that question. Okay. Diana Lee Carhart. My wife and I love a donor, but we are nervous that he doesn't have a confirmed pregnancy report yet. How does that reporting work? So as I mentioned, that reporting is from you all. When we have a report of a pregnancy or birth, we enter it for the donor, or if the donor themselves has a child. I wouldn't worry too much about it, especially if it's a newer donor that's gone up and he's a younger guy. If he's in his early 20s, not likely to have his own kids yet. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay. Jules, thank you for this. Why choose Fairfax over other sperm banks, and how are you screening for COVID? Well, choose Fairfax because we're the best. I mean, come on. Fairfax is the best. We do the most testing on our donors. We have the highest quality. We have over 35-year history at this point. And I will vouch for the quality of the staff that's doing the work to provide you with the donors and the donor sperm that you need. And how are we screening for COVID? I briefly addressed that earlier, but just to give you an answer now, we do screening questionnaires that ask the donors, even before COVID, all of their symptoms, if they've had any illness or anything since their last visit. Well, since COVID has started, we ask specifically about their exposure to COVID symptoms, and if they live with anybody who's had exposure or COVID. So we're doing a verbal questioning. All of our donors, they're coming in once a week for about 6 months or so. We get to know them, they know us. If they're sick, they call us and they cancel or reschedule. They don't come in. We are testing our donors if there's a known or suspected exposure, or if they are symptomatic. If they have a positive COVID result, we don't collect a sample, and they are deferred for a month, a little over a month. And then they're tested upon return, and they have to have 2 negative tests before we start collecting again. So we're doing all of that screening and testing. All right, let's see. Talked a little bit about that. Okay, what is the CS team? Thank you, CMS 519. I do tend to use acronyms. The CS team is our great client services team. Okay, exactly, Nance. Thank you. I'm glad that you're learning. She says she's learning a lot. That's great to hear. All right. Let's see. Oh, this is a fantastic. Oh, I'm so Brooke Day Cosby. You just asked my favorite question. How in touch with you are the donors to continue collecting medical info after donation? I love this question because for years when I first started, I thought, this medical application is comprehensive, but it's a snapshot in time. We're getting their information and their family's information when most people are young and healthy and their families are young and healthy. What happens later? So we implemented an annual update. Can you tell I'm excited about this? I get real gesticulating with my hands here. We implemented an annual update program where every year, our retired donors get an email invitation reminder to log into a secure website, and they can update their information, their family's information, and this has been implemented for a couple of years. And what you can see is on your donor's profile. If you go to the donor profile page on the catalog, and on the right side, you can see the summary profile. It's a free downloadable product. And it is what it says. It's a summary profile. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to see the update section. And that's where you're going to see, for the first couple of years, it's going to be like 2012, no update, 2013, no update, no updated information, because really nothing's changing. And then you'll see things like graduated a doctoral program, or married and had a child, father developed high blood pressure, grandmother passed away of a heart attack, things like that. Information on the donor, he himself developed high blood pressure or something like that. All of these updates are processed by our staff and reviewed. If there's a medical update, they're reviewed by our genetic counselor and our medical director. And if it is anything that would lead to an increased chance of your child developing a condition, we would actually proactively reach out to you for a notification. If it's just general health updates and well-being, like a grandparent or something like that, it's in the summary profile. So that information's on there. So like I said, annually we're reaching out to them. And I love this program. We're the only sperm bank. Here's another reason to pick Fairfax. We're the only sperm bank who's actively doing this and adding it to the online summary profile for free. So thank you for that question. Okay, I get really excited talking about what I do. All right. How effective is the in-home insemination? Again, watch that webinar. It's fantastic. So insemination with frozen donor sperm, each cycle, if you are a healthy person with no known fertility issues under the age of 35, you have about a 15 to 20% chance of getting pregnant each cycle. Okay, that's just a general rule. With frozen donor sperm, for an in-office IUI, which is an intrauterine insemination, that's where the catheter is inserted into the vagina through the cervix into the uterus, you have, with frozen donor sperm, between a 12 and 15% chance. With an in-home insemination, which is ICI, which is intracervical insemination, where you insert a needleless syringe through the vagina and place the sperm sample onto the cervix, you have between a 10 and 12%. So it's slightly lower with at home. And like I said, the caveat is you have to be healthy, no known fertility issues, and under the age of 35. Once you're over 35, we start to lose some of our fertility. You have less ovarian reserve. You may develop some fertility issues. It's always best to work with a physician or a mental health professional to understand your health and fertility before you jump into the journey of trying at-home inseminations. You want to basically work with somebody to get the best information about how to prepare yourself and your body for pregnancy. And they'll be able to advise you as well. Okay. All right, let's see. Oh, yay. YDC Danny, thank you. Fairfax really is the best. I love that. Okay, Bohemian Airstream. I ordered sperm from Fairfax and ended up with 14 embryos from my IVF cycle. That is fairly high, and I'm so grateful for Fairfax going through the process of getting quality donors. Congratulations to you. That's incredible. That also speaks to the health of those eggs. So great job on that. That's really great. Congratulations. Afford anything. How much does sperm cost? So that's going to vary anywhere from $650 to $1,000 per vial. The preparation, we sell different prep types. So we sell IUI, which is that intrauterine insemination prep. Those are pre-washed, so there's more that goes into preparing them. We wash out the seminal fluid and resuspend it in a freeze media to help it survive that freeze-thaw process. And the reason we have to do that is because when you're using sperm for an intrauterine insemination, you can't put seminal fluid into the uterus. There are hormones and proteins that will cause severe cramping. So you want to have a washed sample for that. ICI costs a little bit less because it has less manipulation. We don't wash out the seminal fluid because that's going to sit on the cervix when you do the ICI insemination. So that's a little bit less expensive. And then we actually offer ART or assisted reproductive techniques preparations. These can be either IUI or ICI, and we actually recommend you can use 2 of those for a regular insemination, and they are priced at about half the cost of a regular vial because there are about half the number of total motile sperm post-thaw. And that's because for things like IVF, in vitro fertilization, or ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection, you need far fewer sperm to have a successful fertilization. That's why we offer those. So there's some differences in there. Okay, I already answered the next question. We're going to skip that. All right, let's see. I have another one here. Oh, we're already at 7:39, 7:40. You probably don't want to leave me talking because I will just talk and talk and talk all night. Let's see. I have some other questions here. This is an interesting question. What if a donor was listed as open ID but dies? Does the listing get updated to closed? Okay, so an ID donor, basically what that means is if you register your birth, we're going to, at the request of your child when they're 18 or older, we will release the donor's contact information. And the process that we actually have in place is that your child will reach out to us. We're going to collect some information, verify everything, and then we're going to reach out to the donor as a courtesy and say, look, we've had a request, and how would you like to be contacted? Would you prefer phone? Do you prefer email? Regardless, they're going to get all of it, but we'd like to notify them of what you would prefer. And then once we get that information back, we are going to release that to your child. So if the donor has passed away, yes, their profile would be updated. It's not being closed per se, but it will be updated to say that he has passed away. We have not encountered a situation where we know that a donor has passed away and there's still inventory to be distributed. We have encountered a donor who has passed away and there was no inventory, but we decided to proactively reach out to the people who had reported births and let them know that he passed away. So I hope that answered your question. If not, ask again, ask me to clarify or tell me it wasn't clear and I can try to explain a little bit more. Let's see. Oh, I just lost my list of questions. That's okay. I hope you guys are finding this helpful. It looks like Gemma is asking If you get put on the wait list for a brand new donor, how long until you'll be contacted for available vials? So that's a good question. If you are, if a new donor comes out and he sells out right away and you get on his wait list, we try to do blood draws. We do blood draws at a minimum every 90 days. But if a donor doesn't have much inventory or there's no inventory and he's coming in regularly, we'll do it a little bit more frequently. So it may be a month, it may be 3 months until there's additional inventory released. Okay, let's see. How many tries on average does it take to have a successful pregnancy? So this is a good question, and one that I'm going to always defer to your medical health professional because they're going to know you and your body best. If you are a person that is healthy, under 35, and has no known fertility issues, as I said, you have about a 15 to 20% chance each cycle. So each ovulation, if you're ovulating normally, you have about a 15 to 20% try. You can literally get pregnant the first time you try, or it may take 6 months, it may take 8 months, it may take a year, it may take longer. Everybody's journey is different. If I would say, and what we've recommended in our home Insem webinar is, if you try for 2 to 3 months and you're not having any success, it does not hurt to have a fertility workup done. This is an expensive process. Donor sperm is not inexpensive. And so it depends on your means, how much you have to invest in this, and also your health. And so if you have the means to afford several tries of in-home insemination, that's great. It's, it can be more personal, it can be romantic, it can, empowering and exciting. It's also not inexpensive, but the whole fertility journey can be fairly expensive as well. So we keep that in mind, and that's why we're always going to defer to your medical health professional. Good question. Does one vial mean one try? Do you need to pay for a new vial every time you try for a pregnancy? So yes, one vial is basically one insemination. We do not recommend multiple freeze-thaw cycles or freeze thaws, because every time you freeze and thaw the sample, more sperm are dying. And the first time you thaw, what you should be getting is a minimum of 10 million total motile sperm, which is what it takes, what is generally in the field accepted to achieve a pregnancy. So it is one vial per try. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. We talked about that. What genetic diseases do you screen for? Okay, what don't we screen for at this point? So if you are looking at a donor, you can download his genetic results right there from the website. We are currently doing a panel of 283 recessive diseases, and we will indicate anything that a donor is a carrier for. Now, the important thing to know is that every single one of us is a carrier for something. Basically, you're not going to know it because as a carrier for a recessive disorder, you're not affected. You don't have, any symptoms, you're healthy. But it's when you have two recessive genes, two recessive mutations, right, that come together, that you have an affected person. So we're screening currently for the 283 recessive diseases. We're also doing a karyotype, which is a really cool chromosome analysis where the integrity and health of the actual chromosomes is examined. It would identify things like translocations or deletions or things that could cause negative or adverse effects in pregnancy. So we screen out for that. We also do cystic fibrosis, spinal muscular atrophy. There's a full list on our website. And the cool thing is, if you are a carrier for a known recessive condition, let's say I know that I'm a carrier for disease XYZ. Now I can go to the website and go to the advanced search, and I can type in or look for the gene or the disease and search for donors who have been tested and are known to be negative. So I can get a list. I can start whittling down my list by finding donors who I know are suitable for my use. So there's a lot of information there. And actually, too, we've got another webinar that I can direct you to. Our genetic counselor, Suzanne Seitz, did an amazing webinar where she covered all of the information you would need for the genetic screening and testing. Okay, let's see. If I live in Florida, can they ship to me? I'm not going to be able to answer that. You should call our client services team and they'll be able to confirm for you. I don't know off the top of my head which states we can ship to people's homes off, okay, let's see. I don't know what that means. Okay, how much would it be to get an egg out and inject sperm into it? So what you're talking about is basically IVF, in vitro fertilization, right? So you're talking about going through an egg retrieval. So, the egg donor or you or your partner are going to have an egg retrieval, and then you're going to use donor sperm. They would create the embryos and then do an embryo transfer. Now, if you're in the States, I see you have some follow-up questions. If you're in the United States, the cost is going to differ greatly depending on where you are. You've also asked if insurance can cover it. That's also going to depend on where you are and what insurance you have. There are some insurance plans that require you to undergo a certain number of inseminations before they will pay for IVF. There are some incredible insurances through some great companies that cover everything, and then there are others that don't cover any of it. If you were paying out of pocket to do the egg retrieval, which includes medication, stimulation with that medication, the actual egg retrieval, and then purchase of the sperm combination to create the embryos and then the embryo transfer, you're probably talking about $15,000 to $25,000 depending where you are. And as I said, insurance coverage is going to vary throughout the country. Okay, let's see. All right. And all right, let's see. I mentioned earlier, if you want to do home insemination, this person asked, do you provide instructions on the process and how to handle the sperm and everything? And we do. You can watch the webinar video. I'm sure we're going to do another live home insem webinar at some point in the next coming months. And then we do also send you a paper copy with instructions of how to do the insemination and how to take care of yourself afterwards. All right, if anybody has any questions, last minute, pop your questions out. Is it possible to get the success or number of births a donor has had before purchasing? So if you speak to our client services team, they can tell you if the donor has met the family limit or where they're at in a range. But if the donor has met the family limit of 25, they wouldn't appear in the regular search. They would only appear if you search for them by number because you already used them. Okay. All right. Let's see. And any other questions? All right. Well, let me just say I really appreciate all of you being here. Oh, Ashley, I'm sorry. How much does the sperm cost? I did speak about that a little bit earlier. It ranges from about $650 to a little over $1,000. You can go to our website and check fees or go to your actual individual donor page and you'll see the costs listed. It varies based on the preparation type you're going to purchase. Okay. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here for my first ever Instagram Live. If you all found this helpful, that's great. Give us feedback. I would love to hear suggestions for additional live content or webinar content. This was a fun experience, first one. So thank you all for being here. Have a great night.